Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm bringing to you guys is a brand new video on some of my top tips and tricks for the brand new Tempest Heart Expedition here in New World. Now these tips and tricks are going to be focused around external things or additional things that you can do other than just learning the mechanics of the boss, because of course those are going to be the most helpful thing, but these are going to be little additional extras that you can either bring along with you or do before you go into these expeditions that are going to help you be able to do these more successfully, more fluidly, all of that good stuff. Because as we all know by now, this is probably one of the hardest expeditions to date, and once this comes into fruition on the mutation rotations, it's going to be a pretty mean one. So hopefully these tips and tricks will help you to progress with the regular version in preparation for that. And for any of my guys out there that are a little bit lower gear score, maybe you haven't hit full 600 yet and you're still trying to get this for the insane loot drops, or even those that are sitting around the 600 mark but not up to 625 yet, again, same reason, the really good drops that this gives. Hopefully this should help you out. Now before we jump into the video, if you do want to see more New World content, whether it's tips, tricks, guides like today's video, or whether it's news and updates about the game, then make sure you drop in a subscribe down below, as I do cover all of the latest and greatest here on the channel. And if you do go on to find this video useful and informative, please do drop me a like as well, as it massively helps to support my content here on the channel. Without further ado, let's jump into the first one. Now the first thing that we're going to look at here is the infused corrupted coating. This one is giving you additional damage versus corrupted enemies and can be applied to one or both of your weapons for a run. Now this does last for 40 minutes, so to be perfectly honest with you guys, a lot of you will need at least 2 of these if you're just doing it on one of your weapons, and if you're applying the coating to both of your weapons, you'll need 4 per run, because it is pretty long. So it can be quite expensive. Obviously you can see here this is filtered by price, and we're starting at the cheapest, which is 61.90 per plus tax, so you're looking about 65 gold per one. Now this is obviously quite expensive, like I said. However, you are able to craft these if you are of the appropriate level in Arcana, or you've got a friend or company member who can do that. Probably get these a little bit cheaper, but they can be useful. A lot of us have them lying around for things like invasions, so grabbing 1 or 2 of them, even if it's just for maybe the bosses, once you get to that end of the dungeon, this can be super useful, as it does boost your damage by a significant amount, and is pretty helpful to just have on whichever weapon you have, regardless of what else you've got going on, as it does give you a little bit extra damage. The next thing we're looking at then is stat boosting food, and as you guys can see just under my camera here, I've got the roasted rabbit with leaves and vegetables. Now this one gives us an increase of 40 points into constitution, which for my build will bring me up to 300 and just over 200 constitution, which means that I'll get the 20% increase to armor and of course more health. Now, depending on what stage of the game you're at, you might be at similar stats to me, or you might be at slightly less. Either way, these stat boosting foods can be really good, and it doesn't just have to be a straight one attribute booster. It could be a split like the carrot cake here, which gives us 24 strength and 16 con. This is a really good one if you're getting yourself up to maybe 300 strength and 150 con if you've got less points, etc. Or you can go for straight strength ones, straight int ones, straight focus, whatever you want to do. And all of these are going to be super helpful. Now, again, some of these can be expensive, so my recommendation is to check the prices. If you've got any friends or company members that can craft them, try and get the materials and the ingredients for a little bit cheaper. Get your friend to craft those for you. But either way, these are going to be super good in all content that you do, and this expedition is no different. Particularly on the lower gear scores, this can really boost you to a threshold that will give you a lot of extra power. For example, if you're using a strength build and you don't have 300 strength for that continuous grit, it is really worthwhile. So yeah, it's certainly worth grabbing and investing into some of these if they are a reasonable price, or you can get a friend to make them for you. Now the next thing here, we're going to be looking at weaponry, and particularly why Dex is very good. So you'll see a lot of people saying you want to use a spear or a bow or the rapier, for example, and these are because these weapons scale primarily with dexterity. Now dexterity does extra damage versus corrupted mobs, so essentially you want to be using them to get yourself some additional damage. It's kind of the corrupted weakness, if you will. Now a couple of things to steer away from: Ice Gauntlet, do not use it. Ice damage does 40% less damage to corrupted mobs, and also strike damage does 15% less damage. So that's going to be things like your Warhammer. Now, before we go any further, just to show you guys how you can check which type of damage a weapon does if you are unsure, you can see on screen here that my Warhammer says it's 622. It gives me the damage, the crit hit chance, the damage multiplier, block stamina, blocking stability, all in that top block. And the bit just between the two white lines above the 31 strength says 244 strike damage. So that tells you the type of damage that this weapon will do. So for example, if we go into the Great Axe, you guys can see there that we have slash damage on that one. So this is obviously, you want to stick away from things like the Warhammer that have strike damage, and of course the Ice Gauntlet for that ice damage. Now, what you do want to be using, conversely to this, is thrust damage items. So, like I said there, the bow, the rapier, the spear, you can see there on the rapier the thrust damage. All of these are going to do additional damage, and that is for 20% more damage from thrust, which is why Dex is one of the favoured categories. Also, arcane damage does 30% more. Now, usually you will find this damage in the form of a gem. So if you do want a pure damage scaling gem, arcane is not a bad one to throw on. And finally, nature gives you a plus 15%. So if you've got, for example, a life staff, you're healing, you're still going to be able to do quite a bit of decent damage in this dungeon because of the way that the nature damage doing extra to corrupted mobs. It's going to be pretty helpful. So that is nice for the healers. Now, gems, particularly, like I said there, the arcane one, which is the sapphire one, is the best for pure damage. However, if you do want some great alternatives, the Jasper, which I have in the Great Axe right now, which is where you deal 15% damage for 2 seconds after taking a hit, that is just straight up extra damage. And, of course, you will see things like the Diamond, where you do more damage or more healing at full HP. All of the usual good gems are still just as good to run in this. It's just that the Arcane gems will give you 30% plus damage against Corrupted, so they're going to give you an extra boost if you are going for pure, straight-up damage, which some players like, other players don't. It's entirely up to you what you prefer, but this is a great option. Now, finally, what I want to cover here is Corrupted Bane weapons. You can find these by going onto the trading post and scrolling down to the Corrupted Bane perk, selecting it, and then clicking X here. You can go onto the weapons, and you can find whichever weapon you want. For example, I'm going to look for Great Axes. We're going to then scale them by gear score so we can see the correct ones. And as you can see, some of these are very expensive, you know, 7.5, 45,000, 25,000. But some of them are pretty cheap at 750. Now this one has Keen, Speed, and Corrupted Bane. That is not bad at all, and it is only 750 gold. So you guys can pick these up for a fairly cheap price, and if you're not someone like myself who's pushing towards 625, I've got my Great Axe on 624 there, so almost complete, then you might want to consider swapping out, particularly if you're still gearing. You might want to purchase one of these, or if you get one as a drop, keep hold of it for the expedition, especially if you're under 600, but even in that 600 to 620 range, these can be super good as they do give you a big bonus to damage. It is a plus 14% damage versus Corrupted, so it is going to be really, really useful. Now, other things like, for example, thwarting strikes, where if you've got grit active, it'll give you plus 13-14% extra damage, which, of course, if you've got 300 strength, is going to be active the whole time. This is a really good option. Things like Keen here, where you've just got an extra critical chance, or Vicious, where you do more critical damage, are also going to be really good options. Rogue, 19% extra backstab damage. All of those weapon perks are really good too, but obviously this is Corrupted mobs, so specifically for this one, Corrupted Bane does help as well, so you might want to pick that one up if you are struggling on the DPS side of things. So other than that, guys, that is going to be pretty much it for today. Just some quick tips and tricks that can hopefully help you to prepare for and during your Tempest Heart expedition runs. I know a lot of you have been asking in the comments if I've got any tips for this, as it has been a tricky one to kind of crack down on compared to some of the other ones, especially if you're not quite far into that end game with 615, 620 plus gear. It can still be pretty challenging even as a 5-man competent group, especially on the final 2 bosses. So hopefully this will help you to boost your stats, boost your damage, boost your resistances, etc., and just get a little bit more out of your runs and make them smoother and easier so that you get less of a headache whilst trying to get some of those brand new awesome drops. If you did enjoy today's video, guys, don't forget to drop me a subscribe down below and a like, as both of those things massively help to support my content. And other than that, I will catch you again very, very shortly on a brand new upload. Take care, guys, and peace.